I'm going to explain something. So, a lot of people don't understand how I get what I've been working hard towards, or why I would deserve it, or who the fuck do I think I am, all that shit that I've heard people say. Let me explain something to you from a spiritual aspect, okay? And this can be from any fucking faith you believe in, right? I read this book. It's called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. It has found me several times during really difficult fucking pieces of the journey. It found me. And the first time it found me, it was because it was on Oprah's book club. It was one of the first books she ever put on her book club. And I love Oprah, so I read it. And it changed the way I think about things. Now, what it deals with, and it, again, spiritual doesn't necessarily mean religious. God is in everything, and it doesn't necessarily matter which religion you pick or which one you believe in. It's not about that. It's about how you live your life. Okay? So, this book in particular, and it's helpful for any faith that you practice, because it talks about our own trauma, our ego, and how we show up in the world and project our pain onto other people. Speaking of, that's usually what's happening around here, is people projecting their pain onto each other because of their egos. Now, there's a whole chapter in the book about the ego and the pain body. And it's a weird concept to try to explain, but your ego is basically all the pain that you've endured, and it's a what do you call it, a defense mechanism for how to keep yourself safe from other people, how to keep from being hurt, how to prevent getting close to anybody. And it's usually a shield that you build based on all your previous experiences, right? So, like, especially trauma, especially your pain, especially, your childhood, all the things that were bad that happened to you. And your ego shows up as, like, a defense mechanism. So that's why you brag about your accomplishments or how much money you have, or you feel the need to compete with other people, or when in actuality that's just it's your own insecurities or inferiorities that are triggered by somebody else showing up however they show up, right? That's why we fight with each other. That's why we fucking brag about our accomplishments on LinkedIn and shit. Why we are in secret competition with each other. It's because that ego shows up before we do, to protect us from getting close to other people or getting hurt like we have in the past, right? So, when you go through, like, a spiritual experience, or something traumatic, you can choose two different paths. You can let it fucking affect you, and you can project it onto other people and use your pain to harm other people the way you were harmed. It's that adage of, like, well, I had to suffer and I had to go through terrible things, so they should too. When that's not the case. If you're a real God-loving, empathetic, caring human being that isn't a fucking narcissist or has a personality disorder, then you feel empathy for other human beings. They don't have to suffer the way you did. You learn from your mistakes, and then you try to help guide other people to not do the same thing that you did, because you learned from those mistakes. Your ego holds on to all those memories, and your ego is what projects all that shit onto other people. Now, when you go through something traumatic like that, you have two different options. When I start to go through something really traumatic or hard, I usually pick that book up again because I found it right after my friend was murdered. And that was the hardest, most challenging, terrifying time of my life. This close second. But it found me again while I was in TLP, and I read it again. And when something really terrible like that happens, or happens to you, or there's like a public embarrassment or something, and what happened before we got here was a public embarrassment. You know, everything that happened, I was defenseless, I lost everything, and that times like that, you have something called an ego death, where there is just a shattering of the ego. And when you try to control things, manipulate things to keep that facade up, and you can't, because it's too shattered. Everything is too broken. And it has to happen sometimes for people to heal and grow. You have to have that shattering of the ego. Because the ego is what either... It prevents you. And sometimes people say that ego is healthy. After reading this book, there's a sense of self that is healthy. Ego feels to me more like a projection of your past pain. And so when it shatters like that, and when there is nothing that can really redeem it or build it back up for you, then you have no choice. Sometimes it takes something terrible happening to you for your ego to completely shatter and just be gone, so that you have to rebuild your sense of self from scratch in order to show up as who you authentically are, who God created you to be, to find your purpose and why you are actually here. And when you are going around projecting your pain and your bullshit onto other people, when you're trying to control everybody else, when you are listening to gossip and rumors and needing validation from other people who are also unhealed, you know, that don't have their shit together, but you just need that validation, you know, to be seen or felt like you're good enough. When in actuality, you're good enough as you are right now in this moment. And sometimes in order for you to see that about yourself, everything has to crumble. All has to just fucking completely shatter for you to see that the ego, that person that brags, that person that is only seen because of their accomplishments and not who they actually are, not their character, you know, a person who has so much money and so much, clout, rather than based on their works of service, you know, and using your works of service as clout. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. That's the ego. I mean, look how many fucking sandwiches I gave away. I'm so good. No, that's not. And if you see somebody that's authentic and you start competing with them, that's the ego. That's your ego. Something in them triggers something in you that's broken. That it should be, when those triggers happen, it should be something that like indicates I need to look deeper into what that is. Why do I feel the need to make fun of this person? Why do I feel the need when I'm around this person to brag about my accomplishments? When I'm around this person, do I feel the need to tear down their accomplishments? You know, those should be things that you should be thinking about when those pop up, because that's your ego fighting to stay alive. And sometimes it needs to die so that you can figure out who you actually are on the inside, what you actually want to do with your life. And sometimes you have to lose absolutely everything in order for you to see that money, clout, prestige, status, all that shit doesn't fucking matter. And that you can be happy with very little. your ego tells you that you need outside validation. Your ego tells you that you need things outside of you to make you feel good. When you have the capacity and the ability to feel good all the time anyway. And sometimes when people see somebody who has gone through that ego death, who has taken that journey, and they've started to become fully their authentic self, and they do things out of kindness and not obligation, or not to gain something from somebody else, then it triggers that ego, and they do things that they might not necessarily realize that they're doing, or they might not necessarily realize that there really isn't any competition between any of us. We all deserve. We are all worthy. We are all capable. But it takes losing everything sometimes. Sometimes it takes really hard work. And failing a bunch of times publicly. But when other people's egos get in and fucking, butt heads, that's when things, and I already went through all that. I even gave this book to one of the people that was causing me a lot of trauma, who didn't think I could see. And that's the thing, once the ego shatters, you start to gain these gifts and abilities that you didn't realize that you had. Or maybe you always had, because I think everybody has psychic gifts. I think everybody has abilities. It's all drowned out by the physical 3D bullshit, money, status, clout, ego shit, But once it shatters, then you start looking for other ways that, hey girl, as a bird, you start looking for ways to, that are inside of you to try to find happiness and fulfillment. And then all of these abilities to be able to see the brokenness in others, be able to see where it comes from. They tell you their stories, and you're like, oh, well, that's why you do that. So you can see it in a way that they not necessarily can, and then if their brokenness or their ego is still fully intact and they aren't willing to heal that yet, then they'll try to project it onto you, and don't really understand that what they're feeling is that you're just mirroring their potential, or you're just mirroring to them broken parts of yourself that you've healed. We're all just mirrors, and we're all just like reflecting each other's shit, the good and the bad. But yeah, I let her borrow that book, and then I'm sure she didn't read it, and then used it as like a tactic to get a lick back. And I see her potential. I see what she's got to offer. If she doesn't see it, that's cool. That book would have possibly helped, but maybe it wasn't the right time for her. I can't force anybody to be what I need them to be, or to see themselves the way I see them, or to see me the way I wish they would. That's something that the ego tries to do by bragging, by comparing, by complaining. And that's just past hurt that you build up like a wall around you to protect you from being hurt any further. But shit's always going to hurt. Shit's always going to be tough. There's always going to be challenges. It's how you show up to combat those challenges. And I've gone through all of this, and I didn't want to have to come here and fight, because I've been fighting my whole life. I wanted to come here to build. That didn't happen. It's time to step away, and there's about to be a new beginning and a new change. And a lot of people are going to be like, why the fuck, look what she did here. A lot of people aren't going to understand why I deserve it. A lot of people really, really hurt me here. And I'm going to have a hard time working on forgiveness and all that shit, because I know that that's for me and not them. People are going to have feelings. And the thing is, that ego death, I already went through it. So that it prepared me to be able to handle this next level. All the work I put in, all the pain I endured, that not everybody got to see. And people go through a lot of things, a lot of trauma. They work behind the scenes on things that not necessarily everybody sees. So you don't know what somebody's gone through. That's the ego projected. And I can't explain any further. All I know is that I finally made it to a point in my healing journey and this spiritual whatever that's happened and the breaking down of the ego, that I'm ready for this next level. And what I'm going to do with it, I'm going to keep to myself, but you will be able to see the results. And I hope that, if anything, everybody learns something here. That everything happens for a reason. Even the shitty shit. It's to teach us something about ourselves, about others, and about how to navigate life. It's up to you. Nobody else. Nobody else gets to choose for you. They can have opinions, but opinions are like assholes. It's whether or not you need their validation to make those choices for yourself, because they're not in your shoes, you are. So, take opinions with a grain of salt. Fight for yourself. Fight for what you love. Do what makes you happy. Nobody can heal anything for you but you. Your choices make up your reality. If I can quit drugs, anyone can. Anyone. And you are worthy, whether you think so or not. And I'm worthy, whether you think so or not. Sometimes we need that ego to shatter in order for us to build ourselves back into the person we are supposed to be, not the person that the world wants us to be. Okay? I love you, even if you hate my guts. My mom used to say that. I mean it, though. And despite how everything went down here, I'm still, with what I learned, gonna fight for every last one of you, even if you wouldn't fight for me, because I see your pain. I wish you could see mine, but it's not my job to convince you that I'm hurting or that I was hurt. It's your job to decide what you're gonna do next. Are you going to continue hurting yourself? Are you going to continue hurting others because you're hurting? Or are you going to make better choices so that you can build a life that you're proud of? That's what I plan on doing. I've worked hard for it, whether you've seen it or not. But you're about to see it. And even though I'm angry, and that's my ego, even though I am deeply, deeply hurt and troubled by what happened here, I wish you all nothing but the best. I hope that you heal. I hope that you grow. I hope that you learn. I hope that your kids get everything that they want and deserve in life. hope that you see yourselves and your potential the way I do. And with that, I hope you have a good rest of your day.